Welcome to Primetime Mitch, everybody, and today it's a quick review on my latest cinematic trip. I went to see 28 Years Later, and this is a little bit late because obviously I've had a lot going on in the last couple of weeks. I turned 40, so I had to get that out of the way, and then I finally got the chance to see this movie yesterday. And for the record, it's a different studio once again because of circumstances this week, and I'm also very hot. There is no bloody air conditioning here. It is humid as hell, so I apologize if I look like I'm melting. And I'm going to warn you right now, there are going to be spoilers in this. I am going to be talking a little bit more in depth. I did put out a very short reaction, out of theatre reaction video to this on my Instagram, on TikTok. If you want to check that out, please go to the links below and you'll find where to see that if you haven't seen this movie and don't want it spoiling. And as ever, drop that like and that subscribe down below, hit that notification bell. I will be eternally grateful because I love doing this and I want to keep getting better. That being said, let's get into my thoughts. So, 28 years later. Now, I watched the previous two this week, 28 days later and 28 weeks later, so I could get in the mood for watching the new one. Now, I am a big fan of the first one. I love the grimy, grainy picture. I love how it looks almost like a soap opera from the 90s. It hits a bit harder because it feels a bit rawer. So I was a really big fan of that movie. I think it was well paced. I think the scares were a lot more intense in that one, and I think the acting was very good. I just like 28 Days Later. It's got its flaws, but it's got a lot more going for it. 28 Weeks Later, I think, was more of an action flick. If you check my letterbox reviews on these movies, you will see my in-depth reasoning behind my ratings for these films, but I thought that was more action with horror sprinkled over it, and some of it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Some of it was a bit frustrating, but overall it was a decent movie. So what did I think of 28 Years Later? I didn't go into this with expectations because I just thought, you've got a story there, let's see how you develop it. I want you to tell me what you're going to do with this. Obviously with Danny Boyle at the helm, Alex Garland writing this, I was curious as to what they would come up with. First of all, I will go with some positives because I kind of want to get them out of the way and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it looks fantastic. I'm not always a big fan of that jump cut style, almost music video kind of look to things where they batter you from all angles with all this mayhem. I know that's been a criticism of certain movies recently for me, but it works well in these movies, I feel. And Danny Boyle, I think, does a wonderful job of creating the chaos that's going on in a more grounded way. The cinematography feels a bit realer, a bit grittier. So I enjoyed how this movie looked. I loved the shots of the causeway, and there's a little recreation at the beginning of the tremendous scene from 28 Weeks Later where young Jimmy is running across the fields. Just was very reminiscent of Robert Carlyle in 28 Weeks Later, so I like that. But that's what I noticed straight away. I noticed that this movie looks nice again, and it started off, I think, with the creepiest part of the movie. There is something about the bloody Teletubbies that is very unsettling, and obviously there are known episodes of that show which were too unsettling for young audiences, but overall they were always seen as a little bit creepy, and it looks worse with that juxtaposition, the mayhem that's going on outside, and these kids are being forced to watch Teletubbies in a group just to keep them away from all the shit that's going down on the outside of the walls, and they are visibly upset. They are not enjoying themselves, and it's on a really bad syncing TV. It's almost like a bad VHS, and it just looks really uneasy and unpleasant, and I thought that was a really good start to this film. And we see the young boy Jimmy getting away, having tried to reason with his father, the priest, who is just allowing these infected to break through his windows and attack him and make him one of them. So the kid gets away basically, and we skip forward 28 years later, as the title suggests, and you've got a bunch of northeast people with a very heavy, thick northeast accent, and they are living on a remote island, and they have gone back to medieval times because that would make sense. It stands to reason that they would fall back into those conditions and surroundings because everything else has been wiped out and they basically have to start again. It's like a rebuild similar to what they did in 28 Weeks Later, but from the roots. You know, they have no electricity, they are rationing. It's all about human spirit and things like that, and everyone's coming together to sort of keep this life going and try and build. And I quite like that premise. I thought that was really cool. And you've got young Spike and his father, and his dad is taking him out across this causeway. And across the causeway, which when the tide is out, you can cross, and when it comes in, you are screwed. Basically, you have to cross it at a certain point. And you got the mainland, which is quarantine zone, where all the infected inhabit. And I believe they're going over there for sort of materials and resources, and I think they said we get fuel from here, and there's all these trees and stuff like that. So I can understand why he's taking his son out, because he wants to be able to get him suited and used to going out and doing a job that he'll eventually do when he's older. So it was a very father-son drama at the beginning. It had sort of vibes of The Road in there, and I was sort of all for this. It felt very different, but at the same time, I quite like the concept of everybody starting again, and you're basically taking it back to come forward. So I was okay with that. I will say now, I think the performance of Alfie Williams is the standout in this movie. He is the best thing about this movie. I think he's brilliant. Right from the start, I believed everything he was doing. He had that real innocent, raw emotion all the way through it. He was struggling to sort of accept his father embellishing him in front of all those crowds, and he was very protective of his mother. I'm not saying the mother and son relationship was great throughout, but Alfie's performance as Spike was the bit that I was holding on to. I did feel for the kid throughout this movie. Staying on the positives, I think some of the dialogue is decent. I'm not saying all of it is, but there was one moment that had me laughing out loud. And like I said in my short video, I don't often do that when I go to the cinema. I kind of hold it in, unless everyone's doing it. Isn't it like, fine, you know, you're a big gaggle of geese. And it's the scene where Eric, the Swedish soldier, and I will speak about him soon, but he's got a mobile phone, and Spike has never seen one of these. He doesn't know what it's all about, and he shows him his girlfriend on the phone, and Spike says, oh my god, what's wrong with her face? He's never seen this Botox and the makeup and everything. He's never seen any of that before, and he says it's like this girl who I know back at home who has an allergy to shellfish. I thought that was so funny. That really perked me up at the time when I was lulling a little bit. So some of the comedy in it is pretty decent. I also like to see Ralph Fiennes in this movie. I think he played a very sympathetic character very well. And Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I don't think you really see enough of. He does fairly well with his role, but I'll speak about that in a moment. So those were the positives. It doesn't seem like a lot of positives, but they do carry you through the first half of the movie. So they get you invested for a good 3/4 of an hour. So really, it's enough positives to suggest that there's something there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of drawbacks. Now, we'll talk about the first ones that were springing to mind, and I'll kind of go on from there. I was asking so many questions in this movie throughout, and when you are constantly questioning character behavior, you're constantly questioning logic, you're being removed from the experience. I will list off, and I'll try and do it in order, what I was thinking. For anyone that obviously, I hope you're not watching this if you haven't seen it, because I'd prefer people to watch it and then form their own opinions before. I don't want to be any kind of influence in that sense. But if you have seen it, please drop it in the comments below and tell me whether or not I am not seeing something, I'm overlooking something. I'm happy to hear it and talk and discuss about it. Firstly, you've got these alpha versions of the infected. They are muscular, they are built, they look like Lou Ferrigno on the horizon. That's a nice shot, by the way, of them on the horizon watching, but I don't understand why you've got stronger, more aggressive versions of the infected when this is just a rage virus. You get blood in your mouth or in your eyes and you become a raging wild rabid animal. So I don't understand why they've developed. I don't know how this virus in 28 years has become different so they can become more intelligent or they can work out more or something. I don't know. And also, why can they withstand 4 arrows to the chest? Is this virus suddenly becoming a positive? You're now equipped with a suit of armor like anatomy that can seemingly feel nothing. So I don't understand where that was coming from. Now, I understand if they want to progress and talk about that in the movies coming, but the guys on this island have been around for quite a while now, and they can tell you a lot about these people. They know what's happened over the years with the infection. So I really felt like we needed something more in that. Not just, oh, there's a bunch of really strong versions of these, and there's a load of bottom feeding ones that just crawl along the floor. I don't understand why there's these different variations of this virus all of a sudden, and we're not given any context on that. And that's before we talk about the appendage, which, besides taking up half the screen, is actually a distraction, because when people start making fun of something like that, you've lost your horror movie. So I felt like this sort of indigenous tribal version of The Infected was so far removed from what we're used to from 28 days and 28 weeks that it felt like a totally different movie altogether. I thought I was watching like 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 or something, which is fine if you want to watch it as a standalone, but many people are drawn to this movie because they enjoy the story from the beginning. So there's that. Then there's a moment where Spike has shot one of the big bloated ones that they first encounter, and Dad's really proud of him. That's a great shot, son, everything well done, you've shot your first infected. But then they go to a house and they find one that's been strung up by this gang. We'll get back onto that later. This person that's strung up has a bag over his head, and he is also rabid and infected and screaming and going crazy. And his dad says, "Oh, shoot it, son," and he won't. And it's like, you've just shot one that's moving and right there in front of you, and now you won't shoot this one, which is tied up right there and is quite clearly infected. I didn't see the reason why Spike would second guess himself at that point. Not so soon and with such little reasoning. So that was bothering me a little bit as well. We have a childbirth scene in there with one of the infected. How many years have passed? How is that possible? These are rabid, raging, violent vessels of human beings. Why are they reproducing? And obviously I found it a bit far-fetched that she was literally giving birth right at the moment they decided to be where she was. But why is it not infected? Is that something we can, I guess that's something we can explore. But just a simple notion of them breeding, even if it was born, they're not going to be able to look after it. She's not going to sit and breastfeed it and give it the care and attention it deserves. Probably going to end up getting eaten or something. I know that sounds terrible, but you've got to look at this in a logical way. How do you grow up as a baby when you're not going to get any vitamins or nutrients or anything like that? So I'm getting the feeling that this story now starts to look like, well, if you get rid of them all, they're not going to keep reproducing. I just didn't buy the angle of there being a childbirth in this. It felt very strange. Again, if you've got a better notion of that, or you've got a better theory on that, please tell me. And also just things like this, like, why did Dr. Kelson not kill the alpha instead of putting it asleep? He clearly has a way of subduing them. He stood there asleep in front of him. He's like, look, quickly, let's get away before it wakes up. Kill the f***ing thing. You've literally got a fire there that you're putting innocent corpses on, corpses of innocent people that have been killed and other infected, and you have made this amazing bone totem pole tower, which does look great, by the way, and you're throwing these people on the fire. Why don't you go and launch him on the fire now he's asleep? You left him standing there to come back and have another go. It was just nonsensical behaviour. Many people pointed out the fact that Spike wanted to go back with his mother, having distracted the watchtower and set something on fire, so they all disappeared, and then he went across the causeway to go get help for his mother from the doctor who he's heard about, thinks he can find out what's wrong with her. He suddenly, I guess for love of his mother, he wants to go and help her, so he goes back somewhere he's very uncomfortable with because he was not happy about being there with his dad. He didn't feel like he could shoot people, he didn't think he could defend himself, and suddenly he wants to go back out there with his mother. There is an argument to be said that for the love of your mother you will do anything, so I can understand that. But again, it was like they went all the way across the causeway, and it's a bloody long way, and when they get to the beach, his mum says, "Oh, this is the mainland, we shouldn't be here." How long did you walk before you realised that? And it's these things are screaming at you in your head, and I never understood why Jamie, Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character, didn't come after them. I don't agree with that whole thing that was said at the beginning where, nobody will come looking for you, nobody will come and get you. Because how does that rule make sense when you've let him out with his son previous to that? But it's like, no, you can't go and save him afterwards when he's on his own. Bullshit. Just nonsense. He's stuck at home and you don't see him for the whole movie after the first half. And it's like we've got invested in this father and son, and now that relationship has gone, and so is the character. So that was disappointing. I'm not saying that every movie should be tailored to suit your needs, because there's a real elitism goes on with how people treat other people that have opinions on movies, but I do feel things like this do cheat the viewer. And moving further on, when the baby is born and Spike is on his own after his mother has died, I'll get onto that in a minute, he takes the baby back across the causeway and nobody from the watchtower sees him. And their job is to stay up there and watch, hence why he distracted them in the first place. So nothing is made of that either. They don't see the boy coming back. Nobody alerts his father, oh, he's coming back. It's just, he hangs the baby on the thing and that's it. Ridiculous. It just made no sense. it was a shame to see Jodie Comer's character disposed of so quickly after she learns of her illness. She's given sort of a loose diagnosis from Dr. Kelson, who obviously doesn't have the means to do scans and things, but he can tell from his experience that she is on her way out. And I don't know why she didn't want to spend just a little bit more time with her son. She just accepts it and then goes away to be euthanized. And I don't know, that left a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, you know, your mum, you've just found this out about your mum. Not only have you just found this out, you're also going to know immediately that she has ended it, and then here's her skull. Go put it on the monument. Difficult, that one. Powerful and well acted. Ralph Fiennes, again, does a great job in being the caring, sympathetic person that people don't think he is. They all think he's a lunatic, but he does a great job in that sense, and I can understand what they were doing. At that point, it was like heightened family drama. It was very powerful, very well shot, and quite moving, despite being quite bitter as well in the mouth. But then you go from this dramatic, emotional, sad story, and you learn that Spike is going to stay where he is and learn to hunt and fend for himself, which again, you know, if you see the way he is at the beginning, do you believe in that quick change? I guess that's up to how you perceive the character's newfound strength to be after what's happened to his mother, and his father sort of betrayed him a little when they were at home, certainly betrayed the mother anyway. So it could have spurred him on, driven him on to be a better man than his father. So I can understand that. But this kid is fending for himself, and he has learned finally how to shoot. Boom. Kills one of the infected that is coming at him. They've started to sort of do the zombie walk a little bit before they run. They've sort of turned into Night of the Living Dead before they turn on the accelerator and become the infected from 28 days later. So again, you know, that's open to whether you believe that to be the right thing to do or not, whether you think that that's a good progression or whether you think it's totally not what the franchise is about. But he kills one of them, and then there's a whole bunch coming the next way, and he looks up, and there is Jack O'Connell playing Jimmy. Scottish accent, you know it's him as soon as he starts speaking. I certainly did anyway. And he says, great shot, you're a real warrior, but there's a few coming now, do you mind if we take over? And this gang of people appear behind him, and immediately I saw how they were dressed, and I thought, okay, that's weird, but let's see. And there begins this Power Ranger style, ninja, whatever you want to call it, sequence of fighting that just kills all the emotion that's come before it. You know, there were sprinklings of humour throughout. That's all that's really needed in something like this. But this looked like a spoof, a parody. It looked like it was done for a laugh as a sort of extra deleted scene that you could go and have fun with. But it shifted the tone so severely that it almost was a smack in the face. And they're doing these flips and tricks, and I can't take this seriously anymore. And a lot of people think that this ending was great and badass and fun. I guess it depends what you want from this movie or what you want from your horror. A lot of people like more comedic horror. I'm certainly one that likes horror, real scary horror. I like a bit of comedy here and there, but I've got to be ready for it. I wasn't ready for this. He approaches him, and he's got the gold rings on. He's got the chains, and obviously one of those chains is the cross that his father had given him at the beginning. Hi, I'm Jimmy, dressed as Jimmy Savile. All of them are. And I know this doesn't translate to America too well, although I'm not going to be patronising to suggest that they don't know anything about what goes on over here. Some might not. To this place, that seems really weird. And look, I am the least offended person in the world. I do not like outrage over nothing. I don't like erasing of the past. I don't like easily offended people trying to create trouble where there isn't any and trying to kill humour. I am the absolute least offended person you'll ever meet. And even I thought that was a little bit much. I don't want to smile and laugh at people dressed as Jimmy Savile. I don't want to have him glorified at the end of that movie in that way, in any movie really, but certainly not the end of a horror. Now, I understand people will say to me, and I'm totally okay with these opinions because it's great that you can sort of read into it like that, and you may be right. Probably going to be proved right in the next movie about how it's connection to evil. The cross was upside down. They're quite clearly not good people. They'd done that to the guy who was infected and he was tied up, and the Jimmy was written on the back of it, things like that. This Jimmy gang. But why use a guy like that. I understand the connection with evil. I understand that it's a different time. They wouldn't know about anything because nobody did know anything throughout the whole time he was on this earth. And they maybe are referencing that and using it, but I don't think it should be used. I'm not offended by it so much as I just find it so unnecessary. It ruined it for me. And it was bad enough that they were all dressed like that, but the fact they made a comedy scene out of it. I guess if they'd have been dressed like that and gone in and been really brutal and nasty, and then it would have been like a bit of a shock, maybe it might have worked better. But to have them all flipping and trapezing and doing all that shit dressed like that, no, I can't accept that at the end of this movie that is tagged on the end of two very well known, very well received movies before it. I think they did the previous two no real justice with that. I guess we'll find out in the next two what the plan is. I don't feel comfortable with that gang being part of this going forward. I know that it's going to end up being told in an edgy way, and if you're trying to be edgy and you're trying to be a bit different, I understand, and there's nothing wrong with being a bit out there and being a bit bold, but that was really not for me. It might have been for a lot of others. I've seen a lot of good reviews and people love that ending, and that's fair enough. If that's what you wanted from the movie and you needed something that different and that out there, great. It just did not work for me at all. I thought the character of Eric, the Swedish soldier, was irritating as hell. He just came in and swore a lot and was overly obnoxious. He just saved the lives of these people and he was just nasty to them from that moment on. And I wasn't really that bothered when he was killed. I was almost glad for it, really. Even though he was part of that very funny moment, I was sort of not invested in his character and I thought he was a bit throwaway and fairly obnoxious. But overall, a lot of the decisions in this movie were baffling and strange, and a lot of it didn't make sense like I hoped it would. It looks incredible. There are some fantastic shots in this movie. It is, again, it is a bit jumpy and a bit like, holy shit, what's going on here? There's so much shit going on. There's so many frames going on in your face at once. But the way it's shot with the iPhones, and I've seen the methods used, is very impressive, and that's to be applauded. It's a good concept going back to the times when people have to try and start from scratch. I like that. I was a big fan of that. But overall, this movie just didn't deliver. There was so many questions, and again, the ending just destroyed it for me, really. And I hope that I'm not saying this about the next two, although it's not really started it well for me. It's the worst of the three for me, 100%. It has a lot going for it, but I think it's undone a lot, and it's going to have to do a lot to make the next one a step up. I hope that explained why I didn't enjoy it as much as I did. If you feel like you have some counter arguments, please be constructive in the comments. Don't be an asshole about it. Just tell me why you liked it, what you thought of it, what you interpreted the ending as being, and why you think it was a good idea. Anything, I would love to hear it in the comments. I'm always open to discussing things. I never flat out hate something, and I never say, you don't know movies if you don't like something I don't like. Don't be like that. I'm certainly not like that, and I invite any discussions below on this movie. But that is my review of 28 Years Later. I urge you to go watch it. Watch any horror movie that comes out in the cinema. No matter whether you like the look of it or not, you are doing a service for this industry, which has done a great job over the last year of bringing some credibility that it richly deserved anyway. So that's my review. If you enjoyed it and you liked what you heard, or you want a debate off the back of what you've heard, you'll always get them here. So drop a subscribe down below, hit that notification bell for more videos in the future. Smash a like on the video. I really appreciate that. It just gives me a real boost to see you guys enjoying what I put out, and I've got a lot more to talk about in the months coming up. A couple of ranking videos in the works. But for now, I'm 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐋𝐒. This is Primetime Mitch. That was 28 Years Later. I'll catch you soon.